City Comic Con, September 24th. Ipswich, Mass. Free.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another live video from the Geek podcast. I'm Jack Higgins.
And I'm Artie Higgins, and we are in person at Granite State Comic Con 2023.
Let's hear it, GraniteCon! All right, so joining us now are two very special indie comic creator guests and good friends of the show, Rich Woodall and Craig Rousseau. How's it going, guys?
Good. How are you guys?
We're awesome.
Yeah, so Rich Woodall is an epic writer and artist known for his countless killer series such as Sergeant Werewolf, The Electric Black, Gods of Brutality, and the upcoming Bloody Ring of Dracula.
And Craig Rousseau has worked on DC series like Impulse and Batman Beyond. He's even done Young Hellboy for Dark Horse, as well as his own series with Todd DeZago, The Perhapanauts. Craig and Rich have even worked together in the past on series like Kyra, The Alien Jungle Girl, and they've done covers for each other's series, so you guys have quite the history.
True.
Yes. Yeah, it was a very long.
For good or bad,
yeah.
we're stuck.
So, we're just super pumped to be talking to both of you once again. And GraniteCon's always a great show. So before we get started, I sort of kind of want to go around the table here. You've both been at GraniteCon for quite some time, but what are some of your favorite GraniteCon memories specifically?
That's putting us on the spot.
Yeah, we both did the first GraniteCon, I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
And most of them since then. My favorite memory is Bob Ullman's kid running his car up on me. It was awkward.
Rich is everyone's favorite racetrack.
Yeah. No, you know what? They've been doing, what is it, 20-something years now?
21,
Yeah, I think
22.
last year was 20.
Right, so yeah. It's just cool to see this show grow, because it was in a really small room, that first show.
Yeah.
And it's kind of grown a lot.
The show has grown, their store has grown, and they bring in some fun guests every year. And sometimes I don't understand their reasoning behind bringing in guests, but I'm always fascinated by it. Like Ralph Malph and Potsy Weber are here from Happy Days, which I find awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a great show, and it's, sort of cool to hear these stories about how small it was when it first started, and then to see it become
definitely
one of the biggest shows in all of New England. And that's saying a lot because there are a lot of Comic Cons in New England.
A lot of shows in New England, yeah.
And it's definitely very always sort of colorful, like we're going around getting some videos and stuff, and it's insane just the diverse range of like fandoms here for sure, and like all the colors and stuff.
Yeah,
so it's definitely a really big, really exciting show every year.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you've both been in the world of comics for a long time. But before we get into like the future of comics and indie comics, what project did you break into the industry with? Was it like a creator-owned thing, or did you get a gig from a bigger publisher?
I have to go back like almost 25, 30 years. I was working on samples to get into comics when I was in college, and a friend of a friend happened to work at Marvel, and they were able to kind of guide me as to what my samples should look like. And he put me in touch with someone at DC, and I got a fill-in issue on Impulse. That was my first full comic. My first actual job in comics was a one-page story in a comic book based on a 1990s alt-rock CD compilation called Saturday Morning Theme Songs. And they had all these artists like Tim Sale and Chris Bacalo and Steve Yowell and all these big name artists. And my friend Dana said, "You want to draw a page for this book?" And I did. And Bill Sienkiewicz did the cover. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
And after that, I was working at DC for years on Impulse, and then I just kept going.
Yeah, you had quite a while on Impulse. So definitely a lot of awesome stuff with that character for sure.
Thank you.
What about you, Rich?
So Craig and I were both going to the same convention. You said you didn't start going to that convention until you were professional, though, right?
Right.
But there used to be a really, really small convention in Boston every month in Chinatown, basically, and I would go there, I took the bus from Nashua into Boston, had my little portfolio, and I would go around showing whoever would look at it, and and I heard editor as I was leaving once, and I was like, I know that's the guy who gives people jobs. So I went over and showed him my horrible samples, and for some reason, he's like, yeah, I'll give you work. And it was a really, really small company. This guy, Saeed Dabinga, he ran an indie company called Red Mercenary Comics, and he basically like took. I think what it was, nobody in Boston has cars to drive around. I was 16 and I had a car. So he's like, hey, I'm going to Philly. You want to drive us? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to drive you guys to Philly. So I would pick him up and a couple other artists, Mark Morales and Rob Stoll.
You were artist chauffeur.
I was artist chauffeur, yeah. But he gave me my first, I don't think I got paid, but he gave me my first published work. And then I got little gigs from there and just kind of built on that.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was like 1993, 94, something like that.
That's crazy.
So like close to 30 years ago now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's 30 years this year or next year.
That's crazy. So, how do you guys both think the comic industry has changed since you first started? Do you think someone could break into it the same way now, or do you think it's changed so much that you have to do something more modern and kind of online?
I can guarantee you cannot break in the way I broke in. You can't just cold call editors anymore. You can't just show up at the DC offices when someone says, "Oh, come on over. We'll show you around the tour." And I ended up going to lunch with my friend and a bunch of editors and showing samples. That just isn't how it's done anymore. But I'd also make photocopies of my samples that I would send them in the mail, and they'd end up in the slush pile over to the side and stuff like that. But nowadays it's online, it's digital, it's immediate, it's you put a comic book online, bam, you're online. You've got comics out there. So it's a completely different animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think exactly what Craig's saying. Like, it used to be almost unheard of for somebody to be able to afford to produce a comic. I mean, if you're printing your own, like, it wasn't cheap. You were doing it at Kinko's or something, right? Printing, and they didn't look professional. It was ash can kind of things.
Right.
And now, I mean, anybody with $50, $100 can get a print on demand book, and it looks professional. It looks great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I think
especially with like Kickstarters and
Right.
everything too, that helps a lot.
Right, or people just do it digitally. I mean, we always tell people, like, if you want to do comics, just do them, because the only way to get to that next level is actually doing the work to do it. And you can put it online for free. You can charge people whatever you want, but like, it's easy to do now. It's easy to produce work and get it out there
Right.
now.
Definitely, yeah. It's like, I mean, it's also, I'd say harder because more people can do it. So there's like...
There's a lot of competition.
Right,
Yeah.
but also easier at the same time because, well, distributing it isn't as like
Right.
much of an obstacle as it was.
Absolutely.
So knowing what you know now, what would you say to a new creator trying to get into the comics world? Like, follow the self-published path or try to get your start applying to a publisher?
I think we just said that. Really, just create your own path and get comics out there. Printed comic books are like dinosaurs. We're going to be extinct soon in some way or form. Like, sales numbers are lower and lower, and there is an audience for sure, and I think they'll be around in some form. But online comics is really where it's at, where kids are reading things on their phones. They're reading webtoons. They're going to just on like instantly online to read that comic strip, and you're scrolling through it, and it's a whole different format, and it's fun and it's exciting, and that's where I think you need to be if you want to have a career, a future in comics.
Right. Yeah, I think you got to know your audience too. So it's we both have very different audiences, but so there's some crossover. But if you're aiming for somebody in a younger phase, like, that's not our audience.
Yeah.
I mean, we hope to get some of that, but like he was saying, like, a lot of that is the webtoons. It's even like formatted differently. You're taking in the medium in a different way than flipping through physical media.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And it's just harder to get like down to comic book stores and like get this stuff now. So it's definitely, the industry's changed for
Yeah.
better or worse.
Yeah.
There's no denying that.
Right. Yeah, and you just kind of have to, I mean, we've been doing it one way. We tried to do digital comics at one point. We didn't have the best format to roll them out, but we saw that was like a viable way to do it. And I think if we had more of a technological know-how behind it, and if we had more support from our other creators that were working with us,
Right.
I think we might have done a little bit more. It may not have taken off, but I mean, it helped Craig and I because we started Kyra through doing digital downloads. We were doing like a chapter a week, chapter a month, or something, and then we took all those chapters and sent them to Dark Horse, and that kind of launched that. From
Wow.
there. So it was cool.
Yeah, like you can start digital and then get print or vice versa.
Right,
and
exactly.
That's definitely, like, I think fluidity sort of helps it
Totally.
reach as many people as possible. So one of our favorite things about indie comics is how the ideas are so fun and inventive. In mainstream comics, it feels like anything could happen, but in indie comics, anything really can happen, pretty much. So what are some of your favorite creator-owned series like this that have inspired you to do the same?
There's a lot.
I mean, yeah, there is. I mean, clearly, Hellboy is the book that I hold up there as a flagship, and working on Hellboy is pretty awesome. But knowing that Mike had the ability to do whatever, and he was able to kill off well-loved characters or change the world in his comic, and then said, "Well, this is the new status quo." And in Marvel, there's the illusion of change, or there's the oh, we're gonna break Batman's back, and we brought a new guy in, but in a couple years they're gonna cycle back, and then Bruce Wayne's gonna be back. And
Right.
I think that's the thing with corporate comics is, for the most part, it is the illusion of change, where you come in and you're told this is the toy box to play in, and you can play in it, but make sure you put the toys back in it for the next kid to play with when they come in. So you just can't break all the toys and then run away. That's not fair to anybody.
Right.
So, but if it's your own book, you can just break anything you want.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I think that's something that I think might be the reason why I feel like some of the bigger indie stuff, as well as like manga, does better than the mainstream comics, because characters grow, they have like ongoing character arcs, and change is permanent, really. It's not like, I don't know, like one of the worst examples of corporate comics rewriting themselves is Spider-Man One More Day, where they Peter and MJ divorce so Aunt May can come back to life, and everyone forgets his secret identity. So like undoing everything from the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's and like the fact that they might even go to the next step to undo that is like a whole other thing. So but you don't see that in like Robert Kirkman or anything,
No, absolutely.
Yeah, and like another really good example is like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was like the first like self-published, creator-owned comic to really like blow up and become like this
Huge mega
huge
hit.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty
I
crazy.
hear that one of the guys is here.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
Yeah, Peter Laird, he's here. We didn't get to see him because we're doing this, but definitely we might get another chance.
Yeah.
What about you, Rich? What are some of your favorite indie books?
Hellboy is definitely one of them. Savage Dragon is another one. Savage Dragon is a great example of a book that Eric likes comic history, and he likes a lot of different genres in comics, and so it went from Dragon being a cop to Dragon being like the head of like basically his version of Shield, or like it was kind of like the Avengers meets Shield, and then he went to he wanted a family like Fantastic Four comics, so he constantly evolves the comic to be whatever he wants it to be, and that's always kind of inspired me, because with Johnny Raygun, I wanted to build a universe that I could do whatever. If I wanted to do a horror book, like it kind of fit in there. If I wanted to do silly comedy, I could fit that in there. And so Savage Dragon is very much that book that it is constantly morphing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you do a couple more 100 issues, you'll be up.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So that book has been going on for.
It's almost
Yeah.
300.
I think isn't it like the longest running thing from like a single creator?
It's not quite. It's very close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, the art part?
Cerebus.
Oh,
Right,
Cerebus
but
the artwork, right.
But he had a guy doing backgrounds.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just saying,
Throwing it out there.
defending
Yeah.
Eric a little bit.
But yeah, like back to Savage Dragon, it's like it does like the early Image stuff especially. I feel like they're just creating these comics so they can just do what they think is cool and have fun. And I think Savage Dragon is really that, like especially I feel like out of all of them.
He was doing Savage Dragon when he was a kid, so he really took the comics he was making as a kid and
and I
put
think
him in a modern setting.
I think I remember hearing it was the same way for like Spawn and Wildcats. That was all like characters they were just drawing as kids.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of it shows. But
Yeah, especially with the Rob Liefeld stuff.
Right.
So when you're making indie comics or working for smaller publishers, how do you guys like to handle all the promoting and marketing? Do you like that part, or do you prefer to just make the comic and not have to worry about the rest?
I mean, I think it's a necessity. It's not necessarily something we enjoy, I don't think. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's a certain part of it you kind of have to be a showman. You have to, if somebody comes to your table, you have to be able to get across the concept of your book, and in hopefully a way that you're not running people off from your table. So, I mean, that's one small part of it. But promoting your book when it's coming out on through Diamond or something, it's being solicited, like it's all you have to do that. But your day job is your job is to create the comic. So you're the marketer, you're the creator, you're the accountant, you wear a lot of hats.
And if you're doing it on social media, you gotta keep your social media going. And I feel like I'm again, I keep using the word dinosaur, but like I don't use TikTok. I don't go on there, but I know that's where,
probably for the best.
where a lot of the kids are these days. That you're trying to reach these people, but then if you're using X or
Threads,
it's so fragmented where it's difficult to kind of get traction to kind of keep promoting your work, and you feel like you're just shouting into the void. And oh my God, I can't stop talking about my book. They're going to stop listening,
Right.
And then immediately they'll say, well, I never heard about your book. Like I would have backed your Kickstarter if I knew.
Yeah.
And there's only so much you can do.
Right.
So you gotta hope for the best. You enlist your friends to say, hey, just share this for me, will you? And keep talking it up. You gotta be your own best advocate and salesperson.
Which, by the way, Craig has a Kickstarter going right now. Just to
Oh yeah, you want to plug that a little bit?
Well, sure.
Yeah.
This is a non-comic Kickstarter, which is kind of fun. Probably for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been going to a lot of I've been going to concerts since college, but I stopped buying T-shirts because I have too many of them, and I stopped buying posters because I have too many of those, and things are so expensive. So I'd make these little just for me posters. I would draw them up on comic book boards, or I'd do them digitally, and people kept saying, "Well, you should collect them." So now I am. I'm collecting them, but then I'm also doing like a little bit of research and going back and find the set list from the shows. I'm going to put that there.
Oh, cool.
Notes about the venue, notes about the band that I might remember, photos that I might have met the band, or some of them are autograph posters, so little pictures of that. Just random stuff to throw in there to make it feel like it's a thing for me to remember, because, again, they don't make these tickets anymore. You used to get those little Ticketmaster tickets. And I was had a conversation with my other writing partner, Todd. We went to go see Bruce Springsteen, and I was asking him about bucket list shows. And he said, man, I would love to see Billy Joel once before he stops playing at the Garden. And I said, man, I'd love to see Billy Joel too. And I went home and I looked and oh, I have seen Billy Joel. And it was like 30 years ago, so I don't remember any of it. So now I'm going to keep these notes of saying, well, I went to the show with so-and-so. So when I'm old and feeble, I'll have some memory.
Yeah, and I know. I remember there's the awesome Tenacious D one in here, which we also went to that show,
too,
which was like a year ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Crazy
the
how time flies.
Tuesday before GraniteCon. But
He was rocking.
Yeah.
yeah, what other bands are in there?
There's a lot of They Might Be Giants.
Nice.
Robin Hitchcock, who I started listening to in the 90s. Bob Mould. Pixies are in there quite a few times. And then like Amy Mann. A lot of it steeped in like 90s music that I was listening to.
Cool.
And then I made one for my daughter when she went to go see Taylor Swift. So that might show up at some point too.
Okay, cool.
Bonus print.
Yeah.
for like the
Selling-
higher
yeah,
tier.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an add-on. 30, 40 bucks right there.
So I know you guys kind of talked about this a little bit, but where do you think the medium of indie comics is going? Like, what do you think some things that work and some things that don't work should be handled differently in the future?
So I mean, I think one is digital, a lot of digital stuff. But again, because creating comics is so easy, easy. Ryan knows.
Laugh.
We there's 100 small press guys, companies at this point, that are even lower than like a Scout, Boom, IDW. Like there's tiers below that, and it's just so easy to publish and distribute comics that, I mean, I think that's going to keep going, because the system is kind of saturated right now. So those companies are going to come. They're going to do a dozen issues, maybe 3 issues, and they're going to go away. But people are just going to keep coming in and filling that void. The problem is comic shops only they have their Marvel and their DC and Image money, right?
Yeah.
And that's 75-90% of what they're gonna
95%,
that's what they're gonna spend on those comics. And then we've got the 5% that they go, okay, what indie book is probably hot this month is probably a lot of what they're looking for. Or if they have a creator in their hometown or something that, poor Ralph, the guy, our local comic shop, he supports a lot of indie creators, and you might as well just throw money away on all of us. Like, here, everybody take $1,000 to go. But
Sounds like Ralph.
But it's a great. I mean, Ralph Jetpack is one of those rare stores that is super, supportive of indie books, and they carry a lot of indie books that the creators don't live around here. Like, I know if I'm looking for something, he usually orders at least 1 or 2 copies of almost everything.
Yeah.
And I think the whole distribution system is going to go through a change at some point, where Diamond Comics is kind of losing their exclusivity. But,
because they lost DC recently.
Right,
Image
but they have to ship these books, and it becomes a thing where, if you're doing indie comic and you're doing your Halloween special, and I'm going to price it at $5 or $4 because I want to make it accessible, and then you realize that, if I'm going to sell it through a distributor, they're only going to buy it at $2 or less than $2 because they have to sell it to the store at $2, so the store can make some profit on it. Like it's a big thing where you're like, okay, so now it cost me $3 to print this thing, so I am in the hole completely. So people are trying to figure out how to get out of that system where maybe I sell directly to the fan, but then shipping is also a giant issue. So then I go digital, so it is not an easy thing to think about. I don't envy creators getting in, trying to maneuver all of this, and I'd just like to sit and draw.
Right, and
Don't
at
we
this
all?
point,
Yeah.
you really do have to. I mean, if you want to be a successful indie creator, if you're not, getting paid work, and you're doing a lot of stuff that you get paid on the back end, or you get paid through your sales, like you really do have to wear all the hats and do a lot of extra work that is not just writing and drawing and coloring and lettering.
I mean, but besides working on all the stuff that I've done, recently I worked for a publisher, a small independent publisher, so like it was just him. He called Sit Comics, and I did a book called Startup, and I did, I think, 4 issues of this book. But his idea was each issue is 3 20-page chapters, so that's like 12 issues of this comic book, and he was paying me a decent page rate, and he was hiring me, and he had Ron Friends doing stuff, and he had Tom DeFalco was writing some scripts for him.
crazy.
And he brought in Al Milgram, and he brought in all these people that he liked
Classic,
from
like
when he
Marvel.
was a reader. And he was able to afford this because he was a Hollywood writer who had some Seinfeld residual still, and he was using that money to fund his childhood dream of making comics and throwing his money away. And he's like, well, I tried to self-distribute, and it was him in just shipping boxes out to stores, and that was, he had to contact every single store to get it out there, and then then he reprinted them, and he was going through Diamond, and that's been a struggle. And they were doing Kickstarter, and it was truly a labor of love to tell the stories he wanted to tell. And he had the safety net of having a full-time job, and this was just, you know, I hope it'll take off. I'm not spending my kids' tuition money on printing this comic, but I would love for it to work, and I would love to work with the people who made the comics I loved as a kid. So, you know, he had a Kickstarter that went okay. I think, you know, knowing how much he was paying all the creators, I know that he's not, you know, making a huge success on this yet, but it's certainly, you know, some big name talent that was involved, and he had all the right parts in place, and even that was a struggle. So, again, I don't quite have the right answers for anyone trying to get into indie comics or even, you know, mainstream comics.
Yeah, and like I remember, Rich, in one of our recent interviews with you, I think it was at the Jetpack TMNT signing, you were talking about how, I think it was on your series Gods of Brutality, how like the first issue sales were great, and then as it kept going with the individual issues, sales started dropping off. So do you think like the collected trade paperback is a better medium for indie comics going forward, or do you think the limited series should stay?
You know, I think that's like up to every creator because, yeah, I mean that's pretty common that issue 1's going to sell pretty well. Issue 2, there's like 50-60% drop off. A lot of times, it's a steep drop off, and then, you know, by the time you're on issue 4, like if you get a couple hundred sales through the direct market, like for an indie book, like it's doing what you expect. But trades are expensive to produce, but at conventions they're super easy sell. Like,
yeah,
nobody blinks about dropping $20 and grabbing a whole story. I think where you get in trouble if you're going national distribution is an indie book that's a trade is a big investment for a shop.
Yeah,
maybe it's not a property that's been tested already, and so for you know, a shop that doesn't know you to drop, I don't know what trades, probably $8 to $10, probably. You know, if they buy one, it's not, you're not making much, but I mean, they have to buy a lot of copies, and then they have to sell a lot of copies. So, I think it's a good model for creators at shows and stuff. I don't know how well it works for going to the direct market.
right.
You know, when you look at Kickstarter and you say, oh, they're selling a new book, and I'd like to try this new book. Wait, it's $12 or $20 for that first issue, and then it's $10 shipping, and then if you wanted that new cover by that artist that you kind of want, that's another $20. Like, I'm not paying $40 for a single comic book, as much as I may love that artwork.
Right.
But I know they're also trying to at least make some money and not lose their shirt completely on this whole project. So again, an uphill climb, and like, you bring a book to a show, it's great, but then you've got to spend your weekends traveling to conventions around the country trying to build up that fan base. And if you can create that buzz online, that's very helpful.
Yeah,
For sure.
all right. So, Craig, I know you're not supposed to pick favorites, but if you had to pick one of your absolute favorite characters you ever created, who would it be?
That I ever created? Oh, it would be Choopy from the Perhapanauts.
Nice.
Awesome. That's what we thought.
Yeah, he's a top pick. He's definitely the funniest of the Perhapanauts and definitely an awesome character. All right, now what about Rich? What's your favorite character you've ever created?
Probably Johnny Raygun. At the time, he was based on me, and just his love of comics and pop culture.
He's one of your older ones, too.
He's the very. I mean, he's not the very first one. Actually, in Johnny Raygun #6, there's a big prison breakout. Spoiler, and I actually put two of the characters, my very first creator-owned characters that I had done. I put them in there somewhere. It was really dumb characters named Star and Stalker, very original, and yeah. But Johnny Raygun was like the second thing, and it's just, I have fun doing him. I feel natural writing him, and
Yeah.
drawing them. Yeah.
Now, as you may have both remembered from last year's panel, we have a segment on our podcast called The Battles, where we put two fictional characters up against each other in a fight. Now, you
Johnny
both
Raygun,
unknowingly chose your characters, your fighters, so let's debate on who we all think would win in a fight between Choopy the Chupacabra and Johnny Raygun.
I kind of have a feeling like they would just end up playing video games together or something.
Yeah, I can't really see much of
There's not a lot of fighting and
No, there's some trash talk.
right. A lot of trash talk. Maybe a push or a shove.
Well,
or
who's
something
better at
that'll-
video games?
Choopy.
I don't know. Johnny Raygun.
He cheats.
He cheats.
He cheats.
So the first issue of Johnny Raygun, he goes to New Japan underwater, and he fights a video game server who offers him cheat codes, and he has that internal struggle where like, I could be a god in this virtual world, and he turns it down. So yeah, if
Choopy would have taken it.
All right, going around. Craig, if you had to pick a karaoke song for Rich to perform, which one would it be? Well, any song, more embarrassing the better.
It would probably be the wind beneath my wings.
Oh.
And you would dedicate it to me.
All right, so now what about vice versa? Which karaoke song would you make Craig perform, Rich?
It would Islands in the Stream, and he would have to find somebody. It'd be Todd to do the duet with. I don't care which one of you is Dolly, but yeah.
So before we wrap up, what are some stuff you guys have worked on that's coming out soon for the audience to look out for? I know, Craig, you mentioned your Kickstarter, but either of you guys got any more stuff you'd like to promote?
Right now, the second Young Hellboy hardcover is out.
Awesome.
There is movement on a third. We haven't really gotten concrete movement on that, but it's gonna happen, I think. And then Tom Stagowski, who I worked with on Young Hellboy, and I have been putting together a pitch for another creator-owned book, and that's going through the channels at a publisher right now. So hopefully that'll come to fruition soon.
What about you, Rich?
I've got a Johnny Raygun again. I don't know. So next year is Johnny Raygun's 30th anniversary.
Wow.
And I'm coloring all the original books and putting a Kickstarter together in
That's
January
awesome.
as a trade, and then it's going to be distributed by CEX publishing company, and so next year is going to be a big Johnny Raygun year,
That's great.
and Bloody Ring of Dracula, which I have the ash can for over at my table.
Cool. And
Excellent.
you guys both actually worked on the Laser Brain Comics Halloween special, edited by our dad here, written too. So
Written? Yes.
yeah, this is
colored by you
Colored
guys
by?
flatted it, right?
yeah.
I
Jack
flatted
flatted
it.
it.
He
I
just
made
did
the
the
trailers.
Just did the trailers that were amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, so Craig's story, it's a teenage vampire wasteland is what it's titled. That's a lot of fun. And then Rich's story, The New Guy. So all kinds of awesome stuff featuring, I don't know, robot uprising, werewolf, vampire wastelands. Yeah, both stories are super great.
They're a lot of fun.
I was mentioning it to Dad. It's like he has like at least 3 stories in there where the world is either like completely destroyed or like moves in some kind of crazy direction. 2 of 3 of them are written by you guys or drawn by you guys.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely worth checking out if you're into horror or sci-fi or dystopia.
Anything, really.
Dystopia
Right,
even. All right, so you guys are both at your tables in the armory. So everyone in the audience, if you're going to be here for later on today, definitely swing by and say hello to these guys. They have some awesome stuff they're selling.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then we'll also be in the armory too. So the whole panel here, we're all going to be in the armory. So you can stop by all our tables. We're going to be there with our dad. So there's going to be Laser Brain Comics there. There's going to be Geek Gossip T-shirts. Yeah, it's going to be
Stickers.
great. Yep.
A lot of stickers.
Stickers.
You should like throw stickers out to the audience, just make it rain. But no, actually, no, they're expensive. If you follow, you get a sticker. Just remember that. All right, so is that all we got for our panel?
Yeah, so thank you so much, guys.
Well, thank you
This
guys.
has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you to everybody who came, and special thanks to Granite State Comic Con and Double Midnight Comics for making this all possible. Let's hear it for those guys.
Woo!
Favorite superhero movie is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I love how it combines the Avengers with like the 70s conspiracy thriller movies that I love. So that is hands down my favorite superhero movie. I will say though, I also have a soft spot for The Crow, which isn't really a superhero, but it's, you know, it's superhero adjacent, and that's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Instantly go to Godzilla, but that's not my favorite. My favorite was a movie called The Valley of Guanji. It's cowboys and dinosaurs.
Oh, I think I might have seen
It's
clips
from a long time ago. It's from from the early '60s.
Sounds like claymation
Stop
dinosaurs.
motion dinosaurs. Bring Harryhausen.
Okay.
Stop motion dinosaurs and cowboys.
That sounds awesome.
And it starts with the little Eohippus horse they find, and then they find the Valley of Guanji. So my all-time favorite. Look it up.
Okay, I'm going to give 2 answers. I almost said 7 answers. That's weird. But I'm going to give 2 answers. My favorite movie would be Akira, animated movie. That movie changed my life. I saw it on like a bootleg of a bootleg back a long time ago because I'm an old man. So I saw it back when laser discs were around, and then somebody made like a VHS copy of it, and then sold a copy of that to us. So we got to see it. It was still amazing. I have it on like 5 different formats, and I watch it all the time. It's very inspirational. For a series, it'd probably be Batman the Animated Series. The original, the Bruce Timm, designed or directed Batman Animated Series. That was wonderfully animated. It still had a very somber tone, even though it wasn't like super realistically animated. It still, I don't know, it still hits really hard, I think, even now watching it. So I think that's my answer. There's like maybe 5 honorable mentions. Thundercats, that opening still holds up even after 900 years. I'm an old man. But that opening is animated so well, had so much energy in it. He-Man, the original Filmation one, and Justice League, the Bruce Timm stuff. So now I'm just naming the whole pantheon, but the short answer, Akira and Batman the Animated Series.